Peak Performance Plus presents the Summit Club podcast, your business roundtable discussion for sales and business leaders, with your host, Bill Statz.
Hi, and welcome to the Summit Club, a business roundtable. I'm your host, Bill Statz, and I'm with our Summit Club team, Rick Feinblad. Hi, Rick.
Good morning, Bill.
John Thane. Hi, JT.
Hey, pleasure to be here, gentlemen.
And John Novickis. Hi, John.
Hey, how's it going?
As we typically do, our conversation is around a current business subject or a book of some significance, or even an interview with a guest contributor. And today, we're going to talk about an issue that was brought up by one of the folks listening to our podcast. It's a question from Justin in Kansas City, and he says to us, I work in a three-ring circus. Every member of my team is different and does a different act. Is there anything I can do to better connect with them and understand why the heck they do stuff different than I do? So today, gentlemen, let's put that out on the table and have a discussion about how people behave, how they do what they do, and if we could identify some themes, maybe we can adjust and better understand them, which understanding a lot of times leads to better communication. What do you think?
Well, Justin, I think you're in luck because we've been meaning to do this podcast for a while, but your question really forced things to have this come to the front here. There's a process called DISC, D-I-S-C. It's an acronym. This process, you can take it yourself. You can have a prospect employee take it, and that is a personality test of sorts. That's going to let you get an idea of how this individual is wired.
And it's been the challenge has been around not just Justin. I mean, Aristotle was trying to figure out why people do what they do, and that was 322 BC when human beings sitting in their caves are trying to figure out, God, the guy in the cave next door is driving me crazy. We're trying to get a theme to understand how people behave and how you can connect with them. So DISC is a label that's put on a particular approach to this whole style or personality issue. And it stands for D, dominance, I, influence, S, steadiness, or C, compliance or caution. And it tends to give you a picture, a profile, as to what your dominant behavior looks like. Are you a dominant personality? Are you an influencing social personality? Are you a steady Eddie or steady Elaine, and you're very, very well balanced in how you do things and deliberate? Or are you a very cautious person? You know, we would look to for roles like accounting and engineering and stuff like that. So today, if we can explain, we'll call it an instrument or a resource or a tool to help you and help Justin understand what the heck are this other person thinking about when they do what they do, and try to create a roadmap to connect with them.
The way I understand it, this isn't a report or an assessment. It really explains and defines kind of who we are and how we go about doing things. It gives us an idea of what our strengths are, how we communicate, and this is important to understanding how we fit in with the rest of the organization. It's equally important if everybody in the organization takes this assessment, we understand who has various traits that, when deployed properly, work together. I mean, there's many reports out there that say if you have two dominant people in an organization, that may not work. Maybe you need someone who's more compliant to make that situation work. So this is a great tool to understand not only who you are, but maybe who you're not.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think knowing yourself better and knowing the people you work with better can only help in the work environment. And I think naturally we all sort of figure this out on our own with not words that, like DISC and influence. But the advantage of this, again, is it'll tell you what you're good at. It'll tell you what you're not so good at. And guess what? Everybody's good at certain things, and all of us have things that we are not particularly good at. And it really can help match you up with other people in your workspace who would complement you and who would work well together. As you mentioned, two dominant people might kill each other. And maybe they ought not to be working together.
Right.
But, these styles all can work together. They can work together well. And knowing what you are and knowing what the people around you are, I think only can help improve your performance and the company's performance.
And it just might help you clarify, once you have the results of everybody on your team, oh, well, that person is a blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Now it makes sense to me.
Right. And now I know why I never liked him.
This always brings me back to, and I know you, my fellow panelists here, are probably well aware of the fact that one of my favorite business expressions is one that I've mentioned in numerous other podcasts that we've done, is the most dangerous people in an organization are those who don't know what they don't know. And this is a little bit of a roadmap. If you don't know what you don't know, you either know that that's something you need to improve on, or maybe there's someone else in the organization that's very good at that. And that's when you bring them into the picture. So, knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, and knowing those of others allow you to build an effective team.
It's interesting because we as subjects have all done DISC here. And when you look at the reports, the folks out there that might be listening can't see it, but we're all clustered around the same area of a wheel that kind of distributes the different styles in like the face of a clock. And when a listener, as one just did yesterday, said to JT and I'm really surprised and impressed that you guys all kind of seem to fit together when you're doing a podcast and nobody's kind of banging into or talking over somebody. And that's pretty interesting. And the bottom line is because we're all complementary styles. And I'm not suggesting that people out there have to replace others that match them. But what I am suggesting is people have preferences. And people are most comfortable with people just like them. And so it doesn't mean you need to change your birth situation or your childhood upbringing, but it does mean that you could adjust the way you behave to be more complementary to other folks around you and how they behave. But as JT, as you just said, the first thing you got to do is try to figure out where are they coming from? What is their style imprint or footprint, and how can I adjust what I do to complement that style instead of confronting it or obstructing it.
Now, anybody that's listening to this, you can get the full-on DISC research done, which is, it's going to give you like a 50, 60 something page document about anything and everything about the results of that test. And we'll have a link for that on the show notes. But what we're also going to have for you on this particular episode, we're going to have a mini free version. So if you click through and you go to the podcast website, summitclubpodcast.com, find the episode here about DISC, you're going to have a one-pager with about 20 questions on it. You fill that out, and it's going to have directions on everything on it. But that will give you the down and dirty version of where you're going to fall on this DISC.
One of the things, when I saw the mini version, I've always thought this is a great tool when you're hiring people. Get a good understanding of where they fit in the beginning. This also goes back to a number of podcasts that we've done on team building and coaching in the past. This gives a leader an opportunity to understand what people's strengths and weaknesses are. And, a great coach who I'll leave nameless because he didn't coach for the Philadelphia Eagles once said that his role as a head coach was to put people in a position to succeed. This is a tool that will allow you to do that, whether you're a Fortune 500 company or you're a small company with 6 employees. It's a great resource that often is not recognized or taken advantage of.
I mean, Bill, you had mentioned when we were talking about DISC and everything before we hit the record button today, that the style of the people can even help determine if your employee isn't quite right. So if you have somebody that is a C, which is more of a very cautious person, that might not be the best personality fit for a very aggressive, demanding sales job.
Spot on. Rick, you could certainly talk about that.
Yeah, it's not. And by the way, most successful organizations have one or more people of each of these styles. working for them because you need that. So generally, if you're a D or an I, you're going to probably be decent in sales. But, if you're a bookkeeper, you're probably better off as a C. And that's not, a knock on bookkeepers. It's just a matter of who they are, what kind of work they like to do, and what they excel at.
It's just how you're wired.
It's just how you're wired.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not a right thing or a wrong thing, and there's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing to be, but understanding what you're good at and finding a spot for you that fits your skill set is the important part. And that's what, the DISC survey will do for you.
It's funny when it shouldn't be about sport, but it's almost any classification of activity. You see the difference of performance when people more easily relate to each other and that they support and acknowledge each other. And really, when famous people, we could spend a lot of time just talking about the fact that some of the folks that you see on television and movies and whatever, Charles Barkley is a high D. For those folks out there, Madonna is a high D. John McEnroe is a high D.
Very high D.
Yeah. Michael Douglas is a high D. Cher is a high D. And it's not all about D's, because high I's, people like Bette Midler and Schwarzenegger and Tony Danza and Oprah, Steve Martin, they're all high I's. They're social animals. They're really, they get energized by interacting with other people. And just think about what the value might be if you had a good handle on how you behave, and you could adjust that behavior to better match up with those folks around you. Because it's almost like there's an expression about vinegar and honey and whatever, and you get more bees with honey than you do with vinegar. So,
when you look within the structure of an organization, each of these, the D, the I, the S, the C acronym, probably are more important depending on the department that you're in. If I'm the CEO of a company, I want my accounting department to be a high C. I want them to be compliant. I don't want them to, maybe have a high D and decide that they're going to rewrite tax law on my tax return every year.
Let's round those hundreds of thousands off. It's close enough.
Yeah. And maybe human resources needs an I, an influencer, or a steady social person. So, knowing where people fit in the DISC profile and what department they're in is going to be critical to having people in the right places to succeed.
The funny thing now, John, you brought up a few minutes ago about we're going to have these documents up there that folks out there listening can go up on the website and download them. And somebody out there is thinking, well, okay, so I do that, I answer the 20 questions, and I figure out that I'm a high I. How does that help me with the rest of the circus? Well, the way it helps you is make copies of that questionnaire that you download. And I want you to just sit down and fill out that questionnaire on Bob that's in project management that drives you nuts, and see where you think Bob is. And again, you just have to you want to be right or you want to be successful. And the right thing looks like, I'm doing my job. What's wrong with that? And it's like, well, won't you be more successful at your job if you kind of adjust how you're communicating with Bob in project management so that you get a better result for your effort quicker? And that's really what we're all about. We're trying to help you be more effective by better understanding yourself and then taking that understanding and pushing it on the outside of those around you.
When I got involved with these guys for the podcast and we started talking about the DISC earlier on, about wanting to do this, Bill Stats had each one of us take the DISC, the full-on version of it. And I'll be honest, walking into it, I thought this was more of one of those glorified, like Vogue magazine tests kind of a thing. You take the test and you're reading it and you're like, that really is me. So it's odd, and whoever put this together in the big picture, good job. But even the smaller one works.
His name was William Marston, if anybody cares. Yeah. A long time ago.
So even if you're remotely interested in it, it's just a fun exercise. You might learn a little bit about yourself and confirm things that you really didn't want to realize about yourself.
Yeah. Just as a cautionary, the 20-question one will give you an idea of sort of where you fit. The difference between that and the full DISC is really night and day.
Oh, yeah.
Because with a full DISC, It really gets into where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are. And we used to use it. I used to hire people with it. But if I've hired somebody after that, I use the DISC survey as a management tool because it sits and tells you, okay, here's some things you're really good at. Here's some areas you're not good at. So if you can identify them before they become problems, if they become a problem, they're a lot easier to deal with because it's right there. I mean, you did the DISC, you saw that. We reviewed it before we hired you. And now, it's starting to show itself. So we need to get on top of it and we need to manage it. The only way that's going to happen is if you have a full DISC.
So, Rick, when you would hire somebody, you would give them the full DISC.
Yes.
And then you present that to that person to say, this is who you are if you know it or not. Like, how does that go?
Well, I mean, if we'll make a decision whether we're going to hire you or not. If we then hire you, you have the full DISC, you have all the information. It's yours. You should have it. We have a copy of it. And we sit down and go, okay, let's review it together. Let's see what you think. Let me offer some observations. And it becomes a great management tool.
Right.
Now, you guys probably heard the story about many years ago. I was running a sales training class, and there was a fellow in the class, we'll call him Bill M, in case he's out there listening. And DISC was part of the sales training. You just needed to do it to give you a roadmap on how to improve and how you relate to prospects and customers. Anyway, I get a voicemail on my office line from Bill M, and he says, I'm really pissed off. It's not me. I don't even want to think about it, and hangs up. So a week or so later, we have a sales training class, and we're in a conference room, and it's about 10 or 12 people there, and Bill M comes walking into the room. And I said, hey, Bill, I got your voicemail after class. If you have a minute, sometimes these things are wrong. Well, we can just talk about it. He goes, nope, no reason. Everything's fine. I went, jeez. Class ends. Bill, can you just talk to me? I tell you, I don't need to talk about it. And I said, well, what happened? Because you were really angry when you left the voicemail. He said, my wife read the report. And it was, for him, a huge blind spot where he just didn't see what others saw and how he behaved. And his wife was like, what, are you nuts? Of course that's you. Take that story to a few years after that, and I'm doing business with a large consumer products company in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I'm not going to mention the name, but there's one that's really, really globally huge there. And we're doing DISC reports on a very large sales team. And I get a comment from about 60 different people in the audience, from like half of them saying, if I wanted my wife to take this, or my significant other, and I said, easily done. We'll even give you a reduced rate. And I called it the spousal program. And about a third of those folks in that room had their spouses log on and take the DISC assessment. And it was like, it's really good. Is it good for everybody? No, I'm not saying that. But there's a lot of folks out there that could benefit from some insight into how they do what they do, and then go from there.
Bill, interesting thought on that. Originally we talked about how this worked in management organizations and managers and CEOs. Now you're talking about how it may help you in personal relationships, whether it's wife or whatever, and what you learn about that person and your interaction. But, as you gentlemen know, I coach a number of small businesses on, a number of things, tactical improvement plans, growth strategies, and so forth. And a lot of times I've heard a strategy is that someone wants to bring on a partner, or we're going to set up a real estate development company, and this person has construction background, and I have sales and marketing backgrounds. And I realized that a lot of times people are making large investments, $500,000, $1 million with a person who they may know their skill set, but they don't necessarily know who they are as a person and how they interact with other people. And when you think about going out and bringing in a partner to your business, or developing a new business with a partner, a member, a stockholder, whatever you want to call them, and you really don't understand how they work and how they interact, that's insanity. To make $1 million investment and not really know who you're in business with,
That's true.
I don't know who said it, but there's some thing where it says keep your friends close and keep your enemies closer. I mean, that's what we're talking about, really trying to make sure you have a good, secure connection with whoever you're partnering with, whether it's in life or in business or recreation.
So if you're a one-man shop and you're looking to get a partner, you take the test, you know that you're a high D. And then this other partner, you're going to have them take the test, and it turns out she's a high D as well. There's a good chance that's not going to really jive.
Or even if it could still be the right relationship, you just know that you're probably going to have to bring another personality, whether it's your accountant or someone else in the organization, is going to have to balance that out.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, all high Ds aren't identical people. I mean, there's little subsets of each of them. So two high Ds maybe could work together. But the key there would be knowing, okay, so we're both good at this. You're better at this part of this of our organization, and I'm a little bit better at that. So rather than argue with each other, let's just sort of break it up that way.
They just put boundaries in there.
And by the way, the cost, I don't know, Bill will remember what it is today, just hiring anybody. I don't care if they're a secretary, I don't care what their job's going to be, and having them not work out and having to fire them and having to replace them is a lot higher than giving somebody a disc.
Especially in this employment market.
Yeah, exactly.
There's not a lot of people lined up outside waiting to get in.
No. But it'll give you some information that help you hedge your bets, and maybe you make the right choice.
So I guess for anyone that's listening, do yourself a favor, go to the website, download the disc, take it. Now, when we have a part 2 of this episode, you said, Bill, we're going to do we're all going to say what we scored on this thing. We'll let the listeners get an idea.
We'll talk a little bit about our individual reports, but we'll also talk about how you can, in some detail, apply what you learn. What does it really look like on the ground level? I'll give you an example, and not to do it today, but to do it on part 2. So you're a manager out there, and and it doesn't matter whether it's a sales team, a production team, on the safety committee, whatever. You got somebody there that always seems to be up against you. And if you say blue, they say white. If you say gray, they say green. And you're trying to figure out, I can't afford to get rid of them. How can I make this thing work better? In some cases, if you understand, to Rick's point, maybe they're a D, and maybe you're a D, and, that person's looking for a win. Their self-esteem is in a place where they want to be right. Well, sometimes you just, when you understand that, need to set up an opportunity for them to work on their own, do the entire, whatever that commitment was from beginning to end, and get the recognition of success to satisfy that part of an aggressive or assertive personality. And in other cases, it's trying to pull people in that aren't high eyes. They're not social people. They'll work in a room by themselves with the door closed for hours on end. That's a C. That's a compliant person, attention to detail, perfection. We're going to, in part 2, try to give you some insight on how you can manage you. It's Management 101. Any college USA. You can't manage what you can't control. The only thing we really can control is ourselves. So stop trying to manage other things. Adjust yourself to be more effective. And just as a sketch, the numbers, the analytics show that about 40% of the folks out there in the world are high S's. They're steady relators. They're even-paced, sequential people. About 28% are high I's, influencers, social. They love people. They work well with people. They enjoy people. About 18% are dominants, high D's. Get it done. Do it now, whatever it takes. And the balance of 14% are high C's. They're detail-oriented. They're professional service providers, engineers, architects, accountants. So that's really the game overview. And next time, we'll be able to get a little further down in the weeds and help you see you've got more tools available to you than you could imagine once you better understand yourself. Anything else today, guys?
I think that's it for now.
No, I think that's it. Justin, thanks for your question. You spurred a really good episode today.
Well, thanks for listening. And don't forget to check out the SummitClubPodcast.com website for other episodes. And at the same time, hit the document button up there on this episode and get those, like a test, an assessment, 20 questions, and a descriptive page about each style. And do yourself a favor. Get a little bit deeper into how you do what you do so that you can better understand other people. We come to you from beautiful downtown Plymouth Meeting, PA. If you like what you've heard, tell somebody, a friend, an associate, a boss. Keep in mind that the Roundtable does all kinds of business consulting, meeting presentations, marketing resources, and one-on-one coaching. For myself, for Rick, JT, and John, here's to your climb to the summit.
To learn more about the Summit Club podcast, please find us online at www.summitclubpodcast.com. The Summit Club podcast is recorded and produced by Inertia Marketing and Design, a full-service marketing, digital, and graphic communications agency. You can find them at www.inertia.marketing. Thanks for listening to the Summit Club podcast, and we'll see you at the top.